to Guru Gedara, and today we have our master with us and we call him Dhammika sir. So, how are you, sir?
I'm keeping fine. Thank you very much. What about you?
I'm doing great too. And how are you children? Hope you're safe and happy as well. So, sir, what is our lesson today?
Of course, today we are going to help our students to construct simple sentences in our language. There we are going to pay attention on the passive voice and the active voice. Before we discuss about the active voice and the passive voice sentences, let's have a look at some of the examples. So, I will give you some examples. Can you read them out? John washes the cars every day.
The cars are washed by John every day.
Farmers cultivate paddy.
Paddy is cultivated by farmers.
The doctor treated the patients.
The patients were treated by the doctor.
When you have a look at these sentences, you can see that both patterns express the same idea. Even though both patterns express the same idea, they express the idea in two different ways. That is the nature of the active voice and the passive voice sentences. Now, let us have a look at what an active voice sentence is. The active voice. The teacher advised the student. Can you read it out?
The teacher advised the student.
The teacher, that is the subject of the sentence. Advised, that is the verb of the sentence. The student, that is the object of the sentence. When you have a look at this sentence, you can understand that the sentence reveals us the action done by the subject. Here in this sentence, the subject does the action given in the verb. I repeat, in this sentence, it is understood that the teacher is the person who advises the children. The teacher advised the children. The teacher advised the children. There, the action is done by the subject. So, if the action is done by the subject, we call it the active voice. And in an active voice sentence, the action given in the verb is done by the subject. Let us look at the passive voice sentences. The passive voice. Can you read it out?
Yes, passive voice sentence is the student is advised
by the teacher. The student is advised by the teacher. The student. Children, this is the subject of the passive voice sentence, and is advised is the verb. By the teacher is the doer or the agent. But if you pay attention to this sentence, you can understand that the verb or the action given in the verb is not done by the subject in this sentence. Instead, the sentence reveals what is done to the subject. The sentence gives us the idea that the advice is given to the student. The student is advised by the teacher. Then the passive voice means the sentence reveals us what is done to the subject. The policeman arrests the thief. The policeman arrested the thief. That is an active voice sentence. In that active voice sentence, you can understand that the policeman arrested the thief. The action was done by the subject, the policeman. But if you take the passive voice sentence of the same, the thief was arrested by the policeman. There, the sentence reveals the reader what is done to the subject. So, that is the difference between the active voice sentences and the passive voice sentences. Before we start converting the active voice sentences into passive voice sentences, I am going to tell you the occasions, the instances in which we use passive voice sentences. Look at these examples. We generally use the passive voice sentences when the doer or the agent is unknown, or sometimes we can easily understand the sentence itself reveals the reader who the doer is or who the agent is, right. Generally such sentences are written in passive voice. Let us have a look at these examples. I think Suchitra will help me to read them out.
All right. The poster was removed.
The poster was removed. It was unknown. Nobody knows who removed the poster is. So, the doer or the agent is unknown. The next one.
Paddy is cultivated in many Asian countries.
There, it is understood that paddy is cultivated by the farmers. So, we use passive voice sentences in such situations. Let us have a look at the other one.
The thief was arrested.
Right. The thief was arrested. It is understood. The sentence itself gives the idea that he was arrested by the police. In the previous slide, we discussed the instances in which we use the passive voice sentences. There are some more instances in which we use the passive voice sentences. Look at this slide. We use the passive voice sentence in instructions and sometimes in newspaper headlines. Most of the newspaper headlines are written in passive voice. Can you look at this example? Can you read it out?
Yes, you are expected to turn right at the junction.
Right. This is an instruction. When you write instructions, we write using passive voice. And the newspaper headlines, can you have a look at this one?
The underworld kingpin was shot dead by the police.
The underworld kingpin was shot dead by the police. This is a newspaper headline. When you write newspaper headlines, we generally use passive voice sentences. And sometimes when we present something which is true in general, we use the passive voice. And sometimes when the doer or the agent is uncertain, we are not sure, we use the passive voice sentences. So, the passive voice sentences are used when we talk about something true in general, and at the same time when we are uncertain about the agent or the doer. Better look at this example.
Mistakes were made.
Mistakes were made, right?
Rules are made to be broken.
Rules are made to be broken. There are rules everywhere. So, rules are made to be broken. Have a look at the other slide. When we need to lay more emphasis on the agent or the doer, we use passive voice. We need to emphasize on the doer. We need to lay emphasis on the doer, so that we use the passive voice. Look at this example. Can you read it out?
Yes, the meeting will be addressed by the principal.
So, there we pay emphasis on the phrase the principal. This one.
The new building was ceremonially opened by the chief guest.
The new building was ceremonially opened by the chief guest. There we pay much attention on the chief guest. So, in such situations also we use the passive voice sentences. When we write reports, especially scientific reports or the reports of a meeting, we use the passive voice. When we need to convey very formal information, we use the passive voice. If you have a look at the next example, you can see that the passive voice is used in these two examples. Can you read them out?
Yes, the guest speaker is warmly welcomed by the head prefect.
The next one.
The honest man was honored and respected by the crowd.
Very good.
The
Last
sodium hydroxide was dissolved in water.
When you have a look at the last sentence, you can see that it is taken from a report. So, when you write reports, you generally use the passive voice sentences. That would be ideal. Now, we are going to convert the active voice sentences into the passive voice. Look at this example. The doctors treat the patients. The doctors treat the patients. In this one, the doctors is the subject of the sentence and treat is the verb of the sentence, and then the patients is the object of the sentence. So, when you convert this sentence into passive voice, you have to pay attention to the subject, verb and object. If you pay attention to this sentence, you will realize that this sentence is written in the present simple tense or the simple present tense. When you convert this one into the passive voice, the object of the active voice sentence should be the subject of the passive voice sentence. So, the patient should go to the beginning of the sentence. So, it becomes the subject of the passive voice sentence. Instead of treat, we use the patients are treated. The patients are treated. Then the doctors, it has to be written as by the doctors. The patients are treated by the doctors. Children, you might ask me why I have used are treated in the passive voice sentence. That is because this sentence, the active voice sentence, is in the simple present tense. When you convert an active voice sentence that is in simple present tense into the passive voice, you have to use is, am, are plus the past participle. Is, am, are plus the past participle. So, that is the reason why I have used are treated. The patients is a plural noun. So, you have to use are. Treated, that is because when we write passive voice sentences, we have to keep the verb as a past participle. So, are treated by the doctor. Always the agent or the doer is written with the use of the word by. So, I think it is somewhat clear to you on how to convert an active voice sentence into passive voice. Let us have a look at the things that we have to consider when we convert an active voice sentence into passive voice. We have to consider the tense of the active voice sentence. If the tense is in the simple present tense, we have to use is, am, are in the passive voice sentence. Then the second thing, you have to think of the subject of the passive voice sentence. Remember children, the subject of the passive voice sentence, the subject of the passive voice sentence. If the subject of the passive voice sentence is singular, you have to use a singular verb. If it is plural, you have to use a plural verb. Now, let us have a look at this one. John washes the cars every day. John washes the cars every day. This is in present simple tense. So, since it is in the simple present tense, we have is, am, are. But remember, the cars, that has to be the subject of the passive voice sentence. It is a plural noun. So, you have to use are. So, the sentence should be written as cars are washed by John every day. Cars are washed by John every day. Then we have to pay attention to these things that we should remember. The object of the active voice sentence is used as the passive voice sentence, as the subject of the passive voice sentence. That is what I have emphasized in the previous slide. And at the same time, remember, never change the tense. And the verb of the passive voice sentence should agree with the new subject, singular or plural. That has to be there. And then remember, the agent is mentioned with the word by. These are the things that we have to remember when we convert an active voice sentence into the passive voice sentence. Look at this one. Farmers cultivate paddy. Farmers cultivate paddy. Farmers is the subject. Cultivate is the verb. Paddy is the object. So, if you convert this sentence into passive voice, you can say that paddy is cultivated by the farmers. Paddy is cultivated by farmers, and farmers is the doer or the agent, and paddy becomes the subject of the passive voice sentence. Right. This is how we can convert the active voice sentences into the passive voice if they are written in the simple present tense. Right. Now, I am going to give Suchitra a small activity. Let's see whether Suchitra can do that.
All right. Hope our children are going to help me as well, right?
There are 5 sentences, Suchitra. See whether you can do them. Can you convert these sentences into passive voice?
All right.
People wear masks.
Masks are worn by people.
Second one, nurses look after the patients.
Patients are looked after by nurses.
The health workers clean the garden.
The garden is cleaned by the health workers.
The guard checks the customers at the entrance.
The customers are checked by the guard at the entrance.
Everyone watches the live telecast.
The live telecast is watched by everyone.
Very good. Hope that our children also have understood it.
Yes.
Right. Now, in this slide, we are going to discuss how a sentence that is in the simple past tense can be converted into the passive voice. The policemen arrested the drunk drivers. Let's have a look at this sentence. The policeman is the subject of the sentence, arrested is the verb, drunk drivers is the object. So, the subject of the active voice sentence should be the agent of the passive voice sentence, and the object of the passive voice sentence should be the subject of the passive voice sentence. So, the passive voice sentence starts as the drunk drivers. The drunk drivers were arrested. Look at this sentence. Arrested. It is in simple past tense. Children, if the active voice sentence is in the simple past tense, you have to use was and were. Here in this sentence, drunk drivers, that is a plural noun. So, you better use were. The drunk drivers were arrested by the police. Things to remember here is the same. You have to think of the tense of the active voice sentence, and then you have to pay attention to the fact that the subject of the passive voice sentence is singular or plural. Have a look at this one. John washed the cars yesterday. The cars, it's a plural noun. Cars were washed by John every day. We have was and were in the simple past tense. Even though we have to use were here because the cars is a plural noun. The cars were washed by John yesterday. Hope that you have understood it, and let's have a look at the things that we have to remember. We should remember these things. The object of the active voice sentence is used as the subject of the passive voice sentence, and do not change the tense. And at the same time, the verb of the passive voice sentence should agree the new subject. Singular subject, singular verb, plural subject, plural verb, and always the agent or the doer should be mentioned with by. Look at this example. Jaffna Stallions won the IPL championship.
Okay.
Right? Suchitra, can you convert this one into passive voice? This is the subject, this is the verb, and this is the object. So, can you convert it?
That's right. So, the subject and the object has to change their positions.
Correct.
The IPL championship was won by Jaffna Stallions.
Very good.
You have taken current topics, sir.
Of course, because I like cricket.
That's right.
Right. Okay, a small activity for our children. See whether they can do it.
Shall we help them out?
Sure. The thief robbed the house.
The house was robbed by the thief.
He stole all the valuable things.
All the valuable things were stolen by him.
The owners made a complaint.
A complaint was made by the owners.
The police arrested the thief.
The thief was arrested by the police.
The court sentenced him to 2 years imprisonment.
He was sentenced to 2 years imprisonment by the court.
Of course, it's quite easy, I suppose.
Yes.
Right? So, if the active voice sentence is in simple future tense, they will send the report. How can you convert it into the passive voice? They is the subject, will send is the verb, the reports is the object. So, it can be converted as the reports will be sent by them. The reports will be sent by them. In the future simple passive voice, we have to use will be and shall be. The government will import COVID-19 vaccine. Suchitra, hope that this is going to be a reality.
Yeah, definitely.
And then you better try to convert it into the passive voice. The government, it is the subject. Will import is the verb. COVID-19 vaccine is the object. Can you convert it?
Yes. With so much of hopes, let's convert this now. COVID-19 vaccine will be imported by the government.
Of course, you are quite correct, and hope that our children also hope that our children also can understand this lesson very well. So, we are moving to an activity. Simple now. Before we move on to an activity, we have to pay attention to what we have just learnt. The simple present tense. When you convert a simple present tense sentence into passive voice, you have to use is, am, are plus past participle. What about the simple past tense? Can you tell me the answer?
Was or were plus past participle.
What about future simple tense, the simple future tense?
It has to be will be or shall be with past participle.
Of course, correct. Right. We are going to see whether the children have understood our lesson.
Okay.
Right. So, you have to underline the correct response. New workers were hired by the company last year.
It has to be were hired because it's plural.
Okay. Football is played all over the world.
Is played all over the world.
Somebody was taken my pen.
Somebody took my pen.
The room is cleaned every day.
The room is cleaned every day.
Sri Lanka will be won the match.
Sri Lanka will win the match.
Of course, you have done it very well. Hope that our students also have understood the lesson.
Yes, hope and believe so.
Right. The last activity. Convert the following sentences into passive voice. The police caught 2 terrorists.
2 terrorists were caught by the police. Check your answers, children.
The teacher advised the child.
The child was advised by the teacher.
The ministry gives the health guidelines.
The health guidelines are given by the ministry.
The umpire will postpone the match.
The match will be postponed by the umpires.
The secretary will deliver the vote of thanks.
The vote of thanks will be delivered by the secretary.
Okay, correct. Now, these are the things that we wanted to highlight today. In our lesson, we wanted to make an emphasis on how to convert the active voice sentences into the passive voice if they are in the simple present tense, simple past tense and in the simple future tense. Hope that our students have understood on how to convert these active voice sentences into the passive voice. Suchitra?
Yes, sir. It was a very good explanation. So, thank you very much for coming and teaching our children. So, try using this active and passive voice in your day-to-day language and also your written language. So, join hands with Guru Gedara for more lessons and watch their YouTube channel as well. That is Channel NIE. So, stay safe, be happy and goodbye.